5 dragons, 5 ancient powers. How did they become the protectors of Azeroth? And high above the clouds, a mighty fortress rose, with a hidden sorrow. Last in the legends of Warcraft. Let English find you along the way. Hey, Leora.
Hey, Torin. So last episode I said we were going to talk about dragons.
You did. I've been thinking about it all week.
Then let's not keep you waiting. But I have to be upfront. Before we get to the dragon aspects, before the great ceremony, before any of that, we need to talk about something much darker first.
All right. What are we dealing with?
His name was Galakrond.
That name does not sound like good news.
It really isn't. Remember that after the Pantheon left, Azeroth was full of life. The proto-dragons were out there in the frozen north of Kalimdor, wild, powerful, each kind different. Some of their spirits were tied to the earth itself. Some had tapped into the elemental energies still drifting through the world. It was a dangerous place to live, but it was alive.
And then Galakrond showed up.
Galakrond was already there. He was the largest proto-dragon who had ever flown over Azeroth. When his wings beat, they could flatten entire forests. And beyond his size, he was smart, cunning in a way that made him a truly exceptional hunter. He claimed the best hunting grounds in the north and just dominated them.
Top of the food chain.
Completely. But his hunger was never satisfied. No matter how much he ate, he wanted more. And eventually, and this is where it gets genuinely disturbing, he started eating other proto-dragons.
Even dead ones.
Even dead ones. And something about consuming the dead flesh warped him. His body changed. Extra limbs grew out at wrong angles. Dozens of new eyes sprouted across his skin. Death energy started drifting off him like smoke. And the proto-dragons he killed? They didn't stay dead. They rose up again as mindless, broken things. His servants. His army of the undead.
So Galakrond was basically becoming a plague.
A flying, growing, multiplying plague. And the other proto-dragons couldn't stop him. They were too divided. Old rivalries, old grudges. They couldn't put those aside long enough to work together. So the threat just kept growing.
Who noticed first?
Tyr.
Of course it was Tyr.
Tyr was the one keeper who couldn't look away. The other keepers had grown tired after the war with the old gods and the long work of ordering the world. They had retreated into their vaults and their machines. They'd stopped paying attention to what was happening outside. But Tyr saw Galakrond, understood exactly what it meant, and went to warn the others.
They didn't listen, I guess.
They didn't. Not at first. And Tyr could have given up. He could have said, "Fine, it's not my problem." But that wasn't who he was. He went looking for another way to stop Galakrond himself.
And that's how he found the 5.
5 proto-dragons. The greatest and most intelligent of their kind. Alexstrasza, Neltharion, Malygos, Ysera, Nosdormu. Each one from a different strain, each one with their own unique power. Alexstrasza was fierce and kind-hearted. She could breathe fire. Neltharion was built like a force of nature. His roar alone could shatter bone and rock. Malygos was sharp and calculating. He breathed frost that could encase his enemies in solid ice. Nosdormu could unleash blinding storms of sand, disorienting anything that came near. And Ysera, her breath was something else entirely. It didn't burn or freeze. It reached into the mind and pulled the will right out of her enemies, leaving them in a deep trance.
5 very different weapons.
Very different. And Tyr went to each of them and asked for help. They were suspicious of him at first, a strange keeper showing up wanting to talk. But they agreed. And despite how different they were from each other, they worked together.
And they won.
It wasn't easy. Galakrond's skin was thick enough to take almost anything. But the five found his weak points, his many eyes, the soft inside of his throat, and they hit those spots over and over, together, trusting each other. Galakrond fell. His body hit the frozen ground and left a mark in the landscape that would eventually be called the Dragonblight.
Even his death site became a named place.
Everything in Azeroth's history leaves a scar somewhere. Now, I want to pause on Tyr for a moment because something happened during that fight that matters far beyond the battle itself.
What happened?
Tyr fought alongside the five proto-dragons, and at some point, Galakrond bit off his hand. His iron hand. Just gone, along with a wave of necrotic energy that never fully healed.
That's a serious wound for anyone, let alone a keeper.
Years later, Tyr replaced the lost hand with one forged from pure silver. And he chose the silver deliberately. It became his symbol, a reminder that real justice sometimes costs something personal. That you can't achieve something lasting without being willing to give part of yourself.
The Silver Hand.
The Silver Hand. If you've played any version of Warcraft that includes paladins, you've heard that name. The Knights of the Silver Hand. The greatest order of paladins in Azeroth's history, inspired by Tyr's sacrifice. That's the origin.
That's genuinely moving.
Tyr is that kind of character. All right, back to the five proto-dragons. With Galakrond gone, the other keepers finally woke up. They came together, ashamed of how slow they'd been to act. And Tyr, who had every right to be angry, didn't lecture them. He just moved forward. He told them, "These five proto-dragons just saved Azeroth. They deserve to be its guardians. Let's make them something more than what they are."
And the keepers agreed.
Almost all of them. There was one voice against it.
Odin.
Odin. As Prime Designate, he argued that he had the final say, and his argument wasn't entirely without logic. He saw the proto-dragons as primitive creatures, wild things. He didn't believe Azeroth's future should be placed in the hands of animals, no matter how impressive they'd been in one battle. He thought only the Titan-Forged could be trusted with that responsibility.
That's a position I can at least understand, even if I don't agree with it.
And we'll come back to that, because later history will make this argument feel more complicated. But in this moment, he was outvoted. The other keepers moved forward without him. They traveled to the Dragonblight, to the very spot where the final battle had taken place. Even Ra came up from the distant south to be part of this. And there, acting as channels for the Pantheon's power, they gave each of the five proto-dragons a gift unlike anything that had existed before.
Walk me through them.
Ra channeled Aman'Thul's power, the highest of the Pantheon, the one who commands time, into Nosdormu. From that moment, Nosdormu became the Timeless One, master of time itself. The threads of fate and destiny became his to see and to guard.
Time.
Freya called on Aenar to bless Alexstrasza, already courageous, already compassionate, and now given stewardship over all living things on Azeroth. She became the Lifebinder, and because she had shown the most courage and care throughout the whole ordeal, she was given one more title, Dragon Queen, leader of her kind.
So she's not just a guardian, she's the queen of all dragons.
Yes. Freya also asked Aenar to bless Alexstrasza's younger sister, Ysera. Ysera was given a different charge. She would watch over the living world not from within it, but from inside the Emerald Dream. She descended into a permanent trance and became known as the Dreamer. From that day on, she rarely fully woke.
She gave up being awake to protect the world from within the dream.
That's the sacrifice she made. Then Loken, the keeper who carries Norgannon's gift of intellect and magic, channeled that power into Malygos. The cunning Frostbreather became the Spellweaver. The limitless realms of arcane magic were his to understand, to share, and to protect.
And Neltharion?
Keeper Arcadus asked Khaz'goroth, the Forge Titan, master of the earth, to bless Neltharion. The proto-dragon whose roar could shatter mountains became the Earth Warder, keeper of the deep places, the caverns, the bones of the world. And for a long time, he was Alexstrasza's closest friend and the one she trusted most.
Was.
That word will matter a lot later. We're not going there today. What I will say is, Neltharion starts this story as one of the most trusted and beloved figures in Azeroth's history. Keep that in mind.
Noted.
As the blessings took hold, the 5 proto-dragons transformed. Nosdormu's scales shifted to a shimmering bronze gold. Alexstrasza became a deep, vivid red. Ysera turned a vibrant green, her body reflecting her bond with nature. Malygos became an icy blue, his scales radiating arcane energy, and Neltharion's hide darkened to a deep, earthy black. From that day forward, they were the dragon aspects.
5 aspects. 5 colors.
The Keepers didn't stop there. They also transformed hundreds of proto-dragon eggs, shaping a whole new race, dragons, born in the image of each aspect. The red flight under Alexstrasza, the green flight under Ysera, the blue flight under Malygos, the bronze flight under Nosdormu, and the black flight under Neltharion. And in the north, they built a great tower where all 5 flights could gather, Wyrmrest Temple, a symbol of their unity and the heart of dragon culture from that point on.
So dragons, the race as we know them, didn't exist before this ceremony.
They were made by the Keepers, shaped from proto-dragon eggs. The ordered dragonflights we know in Warcraft trace back to this moment. Alright, now we need to go back to Ulduar, because while all of this was happening, Odin was not taking it well.
Right.
He was furious. He was Prime Designate, the highest-ranked keeper on Azeroth, and the others had gone around him. And beyond the insult to his authority, he genuinely believed they had made a terrible mistake. He was convinced the dragon aspects would eventually fail, so he decided to make his own plan.
His own army.
He looked at the Vrykul, the great iron-skinned warriors among the Titanforged, and saw something he admired: raw courage, warrior spirit. He wanted to build an elite force from among them, and his idea for how to recruit them was unconventional.
How?
He made a proclamation. Any Vrykul who died a glorious death in battle, their soul would be taken to a fortress in the sky. They would be given a new body, forged from storm energy, and they would live again as champions, the Valajar, defenders of Azeroth forever.
That's actually a compelling offer.
It is, and the fortress he promised them, the Halls of Valor, was real. But to make it, he needed help, and he went to Helya.
Helya, we mentioned her before.
Yes, she was the Titan-forged sorceress who worked with Ra to build the Elemental Plane, the prison realms where the Elemental Lords are sealed, a being of enormous power. And over the years, Odin had come to see her almost like a daughter. She was the one person he trusted enough to ask.
So she helped him build the Halls of Valor.
She did. She wove a powerful spell around one wing of Ulduar, then lifted it clean out of the earth and into the sky, a flying fortress separate from everything below. That became the Halls of Valor.
Okay. That part sounds impressive, actually.
The vision was impressive. The problem was the next step. To ferry the souls of dead Vrykul from the realm of death to the Halls of Valor, Odin needed servants who could travel between that realm, the Shadowlands, and the living world. He called them Valkyr, spectral beings able to walk between both sides.
But you'd have to give up your living form to become one.
Permanently. Cursed to exist as a phantom being for all eternity. And when Odin asked for volunteers, no one stepped forward. Not a single Vrykul.
That's a hard thing to volunteer for.
So Odin decided to create the Valkyr by force. Take unwilling Vrykul and transform them anyway. And Helya, who had helped him build this whole thing, drew a line.
She pushed back.
She told him this was wrong, that turning Titan-forged into servants against their will was not something she would be part of. The argument between them became serious. She threatened to undo her work, to bring the Halls of Valor back down to the ground if he didn't stop.
And Odin didn't stop.
Odin looked at what she was saying and heard only a threat to Azeroth's future safety. He had convinced himself that everything he was doing was necessary, for the world, for the Pantheon. And so he did something that cannot be walked back.
What did he do?
He struck her. shattered her physical form, and twisted her spirit into the very first Valkyr. The thing he had wanted to create, he made from the person who had trusted him most, the woman he had called his daughter. Her screams shook the surface of Azeroth and echoed deep into the Shadowlands. And when it was over, Helya was no longer the sorceress who had helped shape the world. She was something new, something bound to Odin's will, forced to serve the Keeper who had destroyed her.
That is a deeply dark origin for the Valkyr.
It is, and the Valkyr would go on to have a very long history in Azeroth. But at the beginning of all of it, there's Helya, not a willing servant, a person who was punished for saying no.
And Odin, he never questioned himself?
He had no remorse. In his mind, everything he had done was for Azeroth, for the Pantheon. His certainty never cracked, and that certainty, the same certainty that made him refuse to empower the dragons, that made him build his own army, that made him destroy Helya, it left Ulduar changed, more divided, more fragile.
And that would matter later.
It would matter enormously later. We won't get there today, but here's what I'll say. Cracks had been left in the Keeper's unity that a clever, patient, corrupted Keeper could exploit.
Loken.
Future episode. But yes, everything connects. The Titanforge sorted themselves into their roles after this. The dragon aspects went out into the world, the Valayar trained in the halls of valor, and the Keepers went back to their separate work, more divided than they had ever been.
And Azeroth, on the surface at least, had its guardians.
5 of the most powerful beings ever to fly across its skies. It was, in many ways, the best protection Azeroth had ever had, but the world still had enemies that none of them had seen coming. Because out in the great dark beyond, far from Azeroth, far from the Pantheon, an old face had been very, very busy.
Oh, Sargeras.
We haven't seen him since he walked away from the Pantheon in episode 3, and a lot has changed since then. Next episode, we go back to him. We find out what he's been doing in the time since he left, and what he's built.
The Burning Legion.
The Burning Legion, the real story of the war that would shape everything. It starts next time.
That is a very good place to stop and feel slightly anxious. And here's a question for today's episode. What's your take on Odin? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
If you enjoyed this one, subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.
If you're learning English, or if some Warcraft terms felt confusing, tap the video link in the top right. Our vocabulary episode explains useful English expressions from today's story, along with the Warcraft terms we mentioned. See you next time.
See ya.